Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Want to bet? Then get in on the action at Sports Interaction. The boys of summer are back on the diamond, and March Madness is on deck. Bet pre-game, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Or in Ontario, download the app now using the QR code at the bottom of the screen. 19 plus, please play responsibly. The Seattle Kraken have been sensed. Welcome back to Game Over Ottawa, everybody, for a late night edition, a solo show here. I'm your host, Maude, as always. Pretty happy tonight after that result. It was getting a little bit scary halfway through the game there in the third period. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, but especially considering how the last game against Chicago went, I have very few complaints tonight. So, and I'm sure most fans will agree tonight that you can't complain too much when you come out on the road against a top team in the league like that and come away with a win, especially in dramatic fashion, a pretty last second goal. Just pretty good stuff to recap here tonight. I'm excited to get into it. And I'm going to kind of run through things sort of in chronological order from the beginning of the game, but I encourage anyone in chat tonight to leave me your thoughts on anything at all. I'll be paying close attention to chat if you guys have anything to chime in with, because I think there's a lot to discuss here with tonight's game. Gonna shout out the Mr. New Guy in the chat, saying, glad they didn't get frustrated and grab the W tonight. Stressful game, they'll have to be better against Vancouver. That is key as well, is that even though we do come away with the win tonight, we will have to be better for the rest of the road trip. Like, Vancouver is probably definitely the softest of the next three opponents, but we'll have to tighten it up defensively because we know they can still score goals, and they've got Thatcher Demko back in that now who can steal some games. So that'll probably be a pretty interesting matchup on Saturday. It's too bad that Demko comes back just in time for the Sens to face him, and they don't have their AHL guys out there in net anymore. A few other comments from chat. Graham Schofield, Sogard looked panicky. The flukes got to him. I kind of agree, although I wasn't too disappointed with his game overall tonight. I think maybe the fourth goal could have had, but it was a very nice shot by Dunn. And then other than that, like, every other goal was just a super lucky bounce. So I'm not too concerned with Sogard's play tonight. I just hope that he knows that these like high goal totals against him are not his fault, really, because he was just hung out to dry in the last game. I did have a little bit of criticism on two of the goals that he let in against Chicago, but the rest of them were just like breakaways and 2-on-1s and stuff. So I don't know. I'm pretty happy with Sogard overall lately. His stats have been coming down a little bit since a hot start, but he's the guy. I mean, we'll see Mandolese get into some games here too with Talbot out, but Sogard, I think, has been pretty good overall. It's about all you can ask for from a rookie goalie who they weren't expecting to be playing nearly this many games so far this year. I think I hope the flukes didn't get to him too much tonight. Like, I think he was relatively solid after those first three fluky goals, and the Dunn goal, I'll excuse it as a good shot. So hopefully Sogard is feeling good about his performance, I think, and it'll be interesting to see who they start against Vancouver, because you got Vancouver and Calgary for the back-to-back. I don't think I have too much of a strong opinion on who I would want to see start against each opponent. I feel like maybe Sogard against Vancouver, because I think they're a bit more of a high-powered offense team compared to Calgary, but Sogard did have a very good performance against Calgary earlier in the season when we had that crazy comeback, and he was just completely holding us in the game at that point, up until we made that comeback. So I don't know. I'm pretty happy with Sogard overall. Graham also saying Giroux just put the team on his back. He wanted to win, decided he wanted to win. Totally agree with that. Gonna get into that a little bit later. Giroux was just absolutely awesome tonight in that third period. Absolutely loving the season he's having. Just, I'm still so surprised at his point totals, really. Like, when we signed him, I was like, oh, that's a good second line winger addition. Like, he'll get like 50 to 60 points, and I think he might already have like over 60 points now. I should check real quick. Got got the box score open here. Yeah, 27 goals. Yeah, 65 points now with the 2 added tonight. And that about point per game pace. Giroux has just been amazing. It feels like almost a waste of a really good season from from a 35-year-old player who like if we don't make the playoffs, but if we do make the playoffs, he's definitely crucial in that he's able to just put the team on his back in key moments, like you said there, Graham. And Cornelius saying blown a 3-0 lead kind of sucks, but they clutched it out. Yeah, I think I tweeted when we were up. I'm not sure if it was when we were up 3-0 or 3-1, but I tweeted it something like, I actually feel more nervous when the Sens have a big lead early in the game than I do if it's just kind of like a close tied game all the way throughout. Just because I hate when they blow leads, and it feels like you can see it coming a lot of the time. When you have a 3-goal lead so early in the game, like 10 minutes in, I think it was, it's just so much time for the other team to be able to come back. And I think it can cause teams to kind of get a little complacent when they get such an early lead like that. So I kind of expected it here tonight. And I did say that I'm more nervous when we have a big lead because I'm scared we're going to blow it. But, and I was right about that fear. But also when this game was in the third period, tied 4-4, I was on the edge of my seat, like I said earlier, just absolutely, like, it was a nail biter, really. It was a really close game between these two teams, which was nice to see because the previous game, Seattle versus Ottawa, in Ottawa, Seattle just kind of ran away with that one at the end of the second period, I believe it was, and then into the third period, they scored like 4 more goals. So just a crazy amount of goals between these two teams in both matchups this year. It's funny, they don't play each other often, but you end up with an 8-4 result for Seattle and a 5-4 result for Ottawa. So 8 goals scored by Ottawa and then, or no, 9 goals scored by Ottawa and then 12 by Seattle over 2 games, which is just off the charts. These teams, I guess they just match up in a way that results in a crap ton of goals going in. I mean, you get that in a lot of Sens games, and I guess in Seattle games too. They have both their goalies with kind of lower save percentages, even though they have pretty good GAAs. So I guess sometimes they just have these games where it's a little rough on defense, but man, can they score, just threatening on offense at all times, even though I'm pretty sure everyone agrees that a lot of the Seattle goals were pretty lucky today, but still super entertaining game. I think from a Sens standpoint, it's very up and down, but from like a neutral standpoint, I think it was a very even game overall, and like if a neutral fan was watching this game, I think they'd be super entertained, and I was thoroughly entertained throughout and very happy with the result, obviously. So like if we ended up losing in regulation, it would have been, I probably would have came on here with a totally different tone, but it wouldn't change necessarily my analysis of the game, sorry, but just kind of the overall tone, you know. So I still have that upbeat positivity of like, well, we're still in it a little bit, although we had not the best out of town scoreboard tonight. But yeah, and then Graham and Cornelius in the chat also talking about Chicago, how they were supposed to be the softest of this road trip, and that loss may come back to haunt them. I'm gonna have that in the back of my mind for this whole playoff race, is that specifically that Chicago loss, and also the previous Chicago loss where we only got 1 point in OT, blowing the lead in that one. It still stings. I'm still mad about that game, and I'm just trying to wipe that game from my memory. Especially since the playoff race is so tight, I feel like those 3 points dropped to Chicago are gonna end up being crucial. Like, there's just no way that it doesn't turn out like that, right? But at least I would have said coming into this road trip that I did not expect to beat Seattle. So depending how they play out the last 3 games of this trip, we could still end up with a good result overall. I think 4-1 would be amazing at this point, especially considering how disappointing the first game was. But the fact that you beat a top team in Seattle and kind of not stole a win, but like escaped Seattle with a good, solid win against a good team, like I feel like it kind of makes up for the Chicago loss, but only if, like I said, if we finish the road trip off strong, because like I said, yeah, 4-1 would be great from this point on. I think 3-2 would be pretty good for overall over the 5 games. I'm hoping against Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton, I'm hoping that we can at least go like 2-0-1. I think at that point, then you've only dropped 3 points out of the possible 10, which is pretty good. But we'll see. That might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. Some more comments about Sogard saying, I lost it in the chat here. Scrolling. Lots of chat comments actually tonight. I was not expecting the chat to be so active for these late games, but it's awesome. Glad to see all you guys here tonight. Yeah. Jared saying Sogard played very well in the first, bounced back great in the third. Yeah, it was just really that middle chunk of the game that was really shaky. And Mr. the New Guy got faith in Sogard. I think overall I would say I have faith with him. Like, it's hard to say with a rookie goalie where you just kind of expect ups and downs and you can't expect him to be perfect, but overall I'm very happy with him. And yeah, Graham, not necessarily blaming the goals on him, but the back half of the game he was moving a lot, taking big swings and getting out of position. Those are fair points. I do have to say I'm no expert on goalie like positioning and movement, so you may have seen some things that I may not have necessarily picked up on. So fair points as well there. Cornelius saying Mando for Vancouver and Sogard for the Flames. Calgary will be desperate and have more to play for than Vancouver. I think that's a very good point as well that I wasn't really thinking. I think that line of logic makes sense too. And Mandolese hasn't played in a while. I don't know how many games he played in Belleville after being sent down, but he hasn't played at the NHL level in a couple weeks now. I think since that Boston game, was it? So that's at least 2 weeks ago now. I think you'd probably want to get him in on the first half of a back-to-back as well. He had to play the second half last time. That Boston game was the second half of a back-to-back, so I think maybe they'll be a little nicer to him given the first one this time. And Jared also saying, if you look at the game flow chart, it shows the Sens controlled 75% of the game. That's a very good point too. I have Natural Stat Trick here open, looking at the Corsi stats as well. We did end up with the final edge, 52.81% for the Corsi, so happy with that. Although the Kraken did actually have more high danger chances than the Sens, which is interesting because I felt like all their goals were lucky, and I felt like our goals were like better plays, other than the DeBrincat winning goal. Obviously, that was lucky as hell. But if the defenseman didn't knock it in, then Pinto was definitely going to score that. So, yeah, I mean, it was kind of, I think it was just a really back and forth game, but we had stretches where each team was way better. Like, obviously the beginning of the game was all Sens. Kraken brought it back a bit, and then I think it really settled down in the third period to be pretty even. Living in the Mist, what was your opinion of how Patrick Brown played with Joseph and Gambrell? I found it a little hard to come up with an opinion on Patrick Brown just after one game. I mean, super happy that he scored. Huge credit to him on that. It was a great play by Joseph along the boards to intercept that clearing attempt, caused the turnover, and set up Brown for that shot. It was a little bit leaky by Grubauer, but hey, we'll take it, especially considering the ones that went in on Sogard today with those lucky bounces. So we'll take that one from Grubauer. I like Patrick Brown's, like, what he's supposed to be. Like, we've just seen in one game so far, but he's supposed to be throwing a lot of hits, making defensive plays. I think he's a good face-off guy. You guys can correct me on that if I'm wrong. I don't know the stats off the top of my head, but I noticed that he was on the wing. They had Gambrell at center. I didn't notice who was taking the draws. That's something that I just totally blanked on paying attention to today. But in theory, I like what Patrick Brown can add to this bottom six. It's not necessarily, like, most people want to see more scoring added to the bottom six, so it's not necessarily going to accomplish that, I don't think. But great on him to get the goal tonight. I think he's kind of more of the same in the bottom six, but I'm thinking maybe a little better than, like, Watson and Kelly. So, like, I'm happy with him. I think you can't complain at all about this first game, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes for the rest of the road trip and if he stays in the lineup for all the games too, because they took out Gauthier to put him in, and a lot of people wanted to see Gauthier remain in the lineup as well. I was kind of thinking about talking about that a little bit before the game, but that ended up, we got way too much to talk about now. So Gauthier is kind of in the back of my mind at this point, but it'll be interesting to see if Patrick Brown stays in the lineup consistently, because I think it's kind of just a bunch of guys in the bottom six that are kind of interchangeable. But that goal today will definitely help his case for staying in the lineup. Jared saying feels maybe Giroux's leadership with the production backing up is so great for the young guns, especially when the team is basically set in stone for 3 years. Yeah, you can't say enough about Giroux's leadership, and then backing it up with his on-ice play and just continuing to be an elite scorer, just like basically on his way to probably a Hall of Fame career. He's probably going to hit 1,000 points by the end of the season, which is just amazing. Like, when we signed him, I remember looking at it and thinking, oh, he'll probably get that at the start of next year, but no, I think he's going to get it this year, and that would be an awesome moment if he could do that on home ice and feel the love from the fans there. And Graham also pointing out that it's Giroux's second best season in his career, which is just outlandish, like I already said, but totally didn't expect that from him this year. He's just absolutely on fire. You can tell that he wants to win. Like I'm sure he was expecting the team to get off to a much better start this season, so he has that fire in him that he really wants to lead the team back into the playoff fight, and he's doing a great job so far. Him and Tkachuk, just awesome leadership as far as we can tell. Just gonna catch up a little more in the chat here. Yeah, Chad, Sens give up 4 straight goals and win. We'll take it. They don't always they don't ask how, they ask how many, you know. So we outscored them 5-4, even though it was 4 in a row, a little rough in the middle there, but you know, I can't complain too much. And just back on Patrick Brown, Graham pointing out that he fills the contractually obligated Brown spot on the Senators after Connor Brown left. And yeah, Josh Brown, Connor Brown, Logan Brown, and Patrick Brown now all in the last 3 years. I guess Dorian just has to have a Brown on the roster. He went half a season without it, and he's like, nah, gotta get one back in there. And living in the missing, he thinks that he's pretty similar to Gambrell, just more size versus speed. I could see that being the case as well. Like, pretty similar games overall, I think. But like you said, I expect Brown to be a little bit more physical than Gambrell. And yeah, Jared, Giroux needs 12 points in 18 games to hit 1,000. He's definitely going to do it. Like, there's no chance at this point that he doesn't get that. That's just, like, the way that he's playing is gonna come quick. It's probably gonna happen before the end of the month, I would say, and that'll be an awesome moment when we get to that. And two other standout players that I want to talk about tonight: Shane Pinto and Jakob Chychrun. Now, starting with Pinto, the reason I mentioned both of them at once is that thank God that we didn't have to trade Pinto to get Chychrun, because you can see when Pinto, he's a little inconsistent, but when he's on his game like he was tonight, he's just an absolute beast. I was very happy with his play tonight, getting that goal right at the beginning of the game, and that drive to the net almost got the goal for the game winner, but DeBrincat gets credit. I thought that Pinto was just all around the net, making strong plays today, and I still just can't believe that we got Chychrun for just draft picks. Like, oh my God, it's just ridiculous, because all year I was expecting that if we finally make a trade for a solid top 4D, like, it's probably going to be Pinto or Greg out the door. And just being able to see Pinto and Chychrun both in the lineup tonight, both being awesome and both scoring goals, is just so happy about that. And Chychrun, totally awesome. How much more can Sens fans love a player than Jakob Chychrun, just like right off the bat? Like, this guy loves being in Ottawa. The fans gave him such a great reception right away, and he's already scoring goals, getting assists, just putting up points right away, which is awesome. Like, everyone talks about we needed like the defensive improvement on the back end, but other than Shabbat, like, we were a little bit lacking in terms of offense from the back end too. So I love how much Chychrun jumps up in the rush and is able to contribute from the back end, because we were kind of all expecting more from Branstrom on offense, although I can't really blame him always being out there with our bottom six. That makes it tough. And then Sanderson gets the points every now and then, but not like super consistent. So I really like that Chychrun is a pure two-way guy and not just a pure defensive guy. I think that adds a really nice dynamic element to our back end. Just awesome stuff from him again tonight. that play in the first period too, I think it might have been him turning it over at the blue line. I think his shot was blocked, and then it was 2-on-1 going back the other way, but he knocked down the saucer pass on the 2-on-1, just knocked it out of midair and cleared it right away. Just he's got that two-way game. He's got that dog in him. I love Jacob Chychrun, and I think the whole fan base loves him, and seems like he loves being here. So I just couldn't be more excited. I hadn't been this like excited about a player. I mean, I guess we did bring in Giroux and DeBrincat, so I can't say like, oh, it's been so long since I've been excited about a player, but like a mid-season acquisition, just off the charts excitement for this guy. It's so good. And Bosty in the chat saying it was Erik Karlsson-esque, making a mistake and then fixing it. Totally agree. And gotta shout out Erik Karlsson tonight. I think it was tonight that he broke his career high in points, which is just amazing. Similar to Giroux, who's having the second best season of his career at kind of an old age for hockey player standards. Karlsson has managed to wind back the clock as well. So kind of off topic, but definitely got to shout out one of the best Sens of all time there for his amazing season. And yeah, another thing that I found very interesting tonight was how much the Sens dominated in the face-off circle. Just awesome stuff. After the first period, I had written down that it was 77% face-offs for the Sens, and that's just absolutely dominant. And Giroux was a huge part of that. I've talked about a lot about Giroux tonight, and he I can't remember the numbers now, but they kept showing on the broadcast pretty much like after the first period, every time Giroux was at the face-off, they just compared his face-off stats on the night to whoever he was against, and he was just absolutely destroying everyone. So, and I don't think the Sens were particularly good at face-offs before this season. So, but when we signed Giroux, they were saying he is particularly good at them, and I feel like it's rubbed off on everyone now too. Like, it wasn't just Giroux tonight; it was just the whole team dominating the face-offs. 64% it ended up being for the whole game. So very happy with that. And it was kind of funny to me that we dominated the face-off circle so much in the first period, and then right at the beginning of the second period, after all those icings, we win the draw, turn it over right away, and then concede. Because I was kind of thinking of this narrative of, oh, winning all these face-offs is helping the puck protection, and we dominated the first period. This is sick. And then we keep winning the face-offs, and then it goes to shit all of a sudden. Like right after we won a face-off too, just turned it over. I thought that was a little bit funny tonight, but still, very happy with those face-offs. It can change the course of a game. If you're losing all the face-offs like Seattle was tonight, they were able to manage, but if that happens to a team consistently, like, it's super difficult to keep puck possession and keep the puck out of your net when you're always chasing the game off of the face-off. So I love seeing that the Sens are succeeding with the face-offs lately. And Hamza in the chat, the Sens have 21 more points with the same amount of games played as last year. That is just great. Like, as much as we come on here and complain after certain games, like, I can't complain overall in the season at this point. I'm like, I'll be getting pretty sad if we kind of bomb out of the playoff race quickly, but as long as we stay in it, like right until April, I'm very happy with the team at this point. Obviously, I got on here all pissed after the Chicago game, but at least tonight the team has shown me that they're able to bounce back from a bad performance. Like, those first 10 minutes of the game were just absolutely peak Sens hockey, just fast, physical, and being able to put the puck in the net, and just awesome stuff. Like, they obviously slowed down after the fast start, but I love that they were able to have that bounce back and show us right away that, okay, they're still in this and they're not just going to have another lackadaisical effort. And they still had pushback in the end of the third. Like, a lot of that thanks to Giroux with that awesome goal and awesome forecheck on the game-winning goal as well to get the assist. But yeah, the Sens were resilient tonight, and they've been resilient all season, really, despite being inconsistent. I think overall in the season, you just got to be pretty much happy with where we are. Like, if you told me we'd be 9th or 10th and that's where we would finish at the end of the year, I'd say that's pretty damn good. So I'm hoping we can stay at least within 2 to 4 points, of that last wildcard spot throughout most of the rest of the season, if not moving up into it, just to keep things really interesting. But overall, I love that you pointed out 21 more points with the same amount of games played as last year. That's colossal improvement, really. And with the roster players that Dorian has added, it makes perfect sense that we should be seeing this improvement. And yeah, it's not always going to be smooth for such a young team, but good stuff overall in the season. So hopefully we can keep the good vibes rolling for the rest of this road trip into Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. I would say this is a bit of a turn, but I would say the one more thing that I want to talk about tonight's game is that I feel like the power play could use a little bit of a shakeup, because 0 for 4 tonight. I thought the first power play was good, which is funny because we allowed a shorthanded goal on that, but I thought it was very good and generating some chances. I think it was DeBrincat hit the side of the net on a one-time chance, a really good pass from Stützle, kind of just before that turnover, and it ended up being a shorthanded goal, but the power play was good before that. But then the rest of the power plays tonight, they really weren't doing jack shit, and 0 for 4 overall, a stretch of 0 for 13, they said, after the second period. On the TSN broadcast, they pointed that out. And also, yeah, after the third power play as well, I believe it was Seattle's 3-3 tying goal. It was like right after the power play ended. The power play that was just completely dead, didn't generate anything, and then it gave Seattle some momentum. The guy comes out of the box, and then they get a chance going the other way. So I don't know what it is with the power play lately, but it's so weird to me that we can have such a high ranking in the league for the power play, but yet it feels so inconsistent. It's just, I've said this many times, but it's just they score like 3 power play goals in one game, and then they'll score none for like the next 3 games. Or it's like, it also kind of feels like sometimes within a game, we will either only score power play or we'll only score 5-on-5. Like, it was such a problem. This is kind of a good thing though, because it was such a problem for most of the season that we weren't scoring 5-on-5. I'll have to check. It's going to take too long to bring up these stats in the middle of the show, but for the next show, I'll definitely have to find the 5-on-5 goal total stats to see where we've moved up from, because I remember at least a month ago, maybe it was 2 months ago, we were second last in the whole league for 5-on-5 goals, behind only Chicago, who upped their 5-on-5 goal total last game against us, for fuck's sakes. But we must be climbing the rankings on 5-on-5 goals, which is kind of funny as our power play is slipping. I mean, you can only score so many goals. It's not like you're going to be scoring 3 5-on-5 and 3 power play every game, but five goals at 5-on-5 tonight is awesome. Even though the power play is slipping a little bit, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of funny that it's swinging back the other way for 5-on-5. So at least we have that. At least it's not the power play dries up and then we have absolutely nothing going on offense. But in terms of the power play, like for the first unit, I'm thinking we need Giroux back on there, because I've been talking a lot about Giroux tonight, and it's just undeniable how good of a season he's having. I think Batherson has been very cold lately. DeBrincat a little bit cold too, although very happy that he got that winning goal here tonight. Very glad as well that some luck went his way, because we know he misses so many chances that it feels like he should score. So nice to see him get rewarded for one that maybe shouldn't have gone in, although it was still a fantastic pass to Pinto. And like I said earlier, if the defenseman didn't knock it in, Pinto would have scored anyway. So, but yeah, like, I want to see Giroux moved up to the first unit. I think I would probably take off Batherson. Maybe Chabot, try switching Chabot for Chychrun, but that might just be a little bit of like the new toy syndrome of just being like, I love Chychrun and get him out there, put him first unit. Maybe they shouldn't do that yet, but I feel like Chabot is a little bit up and down on the power play. Sometimes he's great, sometimes he's fumbling the puck a lot. I don't know. At least it's a good problem to have where we have these options to actually say like, oh, we should move this guy up to the first unit, or oh, we should take this guy off, because I remember even just last year, or even just earlier this year with the injuries, because like with Norris being out all year, the second power play unit has been like pretty ugly on some nights. Like I remember we tried Kastelek on the power play at one point early in the year, which should just never happen ever again. Uh, so it's nice to have these options. It's nice that we're getting some depth, at least, well, depth for the power play, because our depth at 5-on-5 is a little bit shaky. It's like stacked for the top six, and then bottom six scoring not as much, but I like that we have options. Graham in the chat saying Shabbat's point shot isn't as good as Chychrun, which is key. I definitely agree with that. I think we haven't seen too much of Chychrun's slap shot yet. He scored some nice wrist shots and like snapshots, but yeah, it would be interesting to get his shot threat from the point on the first unit. Like that, I feel like Shabbat has been a little bit better with the shot from the point this year on the power play. I think he has like 4 or 5 power play goals, whereas before this year, I think he actually had less than that for his whole career, which is kind of funny. And some of that might just being the power play, like the talent as a whole on the power play getting better, might not necessarily be his shot improving. But I agree that Chychrun's shot is a huge element on the power play. Very glad that he's on the second unit with Sanderson, and I'm glad that they didn't take Sanderson off to put him on either. I like having both of them there. And Graham also saying opponents just don't respect Shabbat's shot. I feel like that's mostly true. Like if he does score from the point on the power play, it's usually like kind of a deflection or a screen. It's not like you when you see Shabbat winding up for a one-timer, it's not usually like, I don't think the other team's scared. Like I feel like a lot of the time his one-timers just go right to the crest of the goalie. So that could be something to consider. I think there's options. I think they should try mixing it up a little bit, because I think the first unit has just been a little bit stale overall lately. And let's see. And David also saying Shabbat only had 1 shot on goal all night, despite having logged just over 23.5 minutes of ice time. Not good. For an offensive D, yeah, not the best, but he's always been more of an assists guy than a goals guy, so I wouldn't read too much into that shots on goal total for the night. But you do mention his ice time, and I just want to take a quick look at the defense ice time, because that's kind of been a common topic this season. And with bringing in Chychrun, everyone wants to see Shabbat's ice time down, which it's a little bit, like 23.5 minutes tonight. That's still a lot, but better than him playing 26, 27 minutes like we've often seen, and there's even been some games where he hits 30. We should never see that for the rest of the season, unless there's like any unfortunate injuries on the back end. So I think 23 minutes is a pretty good number for Shabbat. Other than the goal that bounced in off of him, I was pretty happy with his game overall tonight. Then Chychrun with the 21 minutes and 45 seconds. We're seeing his ice time slowly climb. It's funny, every time they post the practice lines, everyone's like, Chychrun is still on the third pair. What are you doing, DJ? But he gets that ice time. He still gets into the top 4 for ice time. And tonight he was second most. I think we're just going to see that ice time continue to climb as he gets adjusted to the Sens system. And maybe even I could see him passing Shabbat in ice time at some point in the season, like consistently. Maybe not this season, but maybe that could happen next season. I don't know. I think it's a possibility for sure. And then yeah, Sanderson 19 minutes 50 seconds, and then Zub is actually a little low. It seems like some of Zub's ice time has been going over to Chychrun. Zub with 17 minutes 49 seconds, because usually Zub was like stapled to Shabbat and then gets his ice time way up there as well. So that's a little bit interesting. And then I guess on the topic of the defense, the last thing I'll touch on tonight is the fact that Eric Branstrom was scratched. No one was happy about this, and I actually dug up some stats to make a little bit of a case for why Eric Branstrom needs to stay in the lineup. And then it's a little bit funny that I went and did that, and then Nick Holden comes out and gets 2 assists in the first period. Looks like a beast in that period. Not necessarily great for the whole game, I think, in terms of defensive performance. I thought it was very funny at the end of the game when him and Stützle both laid down to block a shot at the exact same time, and then they were both just kind of stunned, frozen on the ice there. That was a scary moment from Holden and Stützle as well, but yeah, I can't complain too much about Holden overall tonight, but Branstrom needs to stay in the lineup. It is a little bit tricky to discuss because, and I have some stats here, because Holden and Brancham together have actually been a pretty good pairing overall for the Sens. But obviously, with Chychrun coming in, one of them has to sit. And you could argue that it should be Hamonic sitting, but that's definitely not going to happen. Absolutely no chance of that happening. Hamonic is just going to play every fucking game for the rest of the year. Like, no shot. Like, depending on whether he has a good game or not, or a bad game, like, he's staying in. It's pretty clear at this point, for better or worse. But like, I was looking at the defense pairings on Money Puck, with a minimum of 150 minutes, Holden and Brancham together. It was in 329 minutes. They have a 55.8 expected goals for percentage, which is quite good. It's I believe Chabot and Zub's was slightly higher, and then Sanderson and Hamonic's was considerably lower, which kind of makes sense, to be honest. But then also it was interesting in 108 minutes. So we didn't see this as much. It was mostly when Sanderson was injured for a week or so there. Brancham and Zub together at 57.9% for the expected goals, which is even better. I think Brancham and Zub could be a pairing that I'd like to see again if we eventually move Chychrun over to the right side, or anyone else over to the right side. I think I liked Brancham and Zub when they played together, and they put up good advanced stats, and then some individual advanced stats from Brancham as well. I was digging for these and seeing what he was best at, because I know I've seen people say over and over again this season, like, oh, he's really good with this stat, and I couldn't remember them all off the top of my head. So I went and did some digging. Brancham is surprisingly second on the Sens, with 5.49 block shots per 60. For a small defenseman who's expected to put up offense, that's surprising and very good. Like, that's an element to his game that I would not have expected going into this season, or really at any point before this season. Like, full credit to him for that. I think that's a huge element adding to his game that I'm sure the coaching staff appreciates that a lot. And he's actually first on our D pairings, on our D lines for takeaways with 24, which is just awesome as well. Again, a small guy in the defensive zone, you would expect him to kind of get out-muscled a lot or just get knocked down. But I think, and that does happen sometimes, but I think the takeaway stat, him being first for that, is a huge credit to him, because that means he's not getting pushed over out there. He's actually able to dispossess players of the other puck, or dispossess other players of the puck pretty damn well. So huge credit to him again for that stat. And then he also has way less D-zone giveaways than both Hamonic and Chabot. I didn't pull the numbers for this one because it wasn't per 60 minutes. It was just total D-zone giveaways. And obviously Hamonic and Chabot have way more ice time, so their numbers are going to be way more. But still something to consider there. I would have liked to see the per 60 stats on that, but I think that's another one. And then for on-ice goal percentage, he ranks 5th, which is not super high for the team, but he's considerably ahead of Hamonic and Holden. Brancham with the 46% on-ice goal share, and Hamonic was down at 39%, Holden down at 37%, which is just complete ass, to be honest. So Brancham ranking ahead of both of them in terms of that, and especially considering that his point totals are pretty low this year. Not that Hamonic and Holden put up a lot of points either, but even though, that's the thing, is that Brancham is not putting up a lot of points, and yet his on-ice goal share is still considerably higher than those other guys. So he's doing just as well defensively, or better, despite not, producing way more himself. And I thought that was huge. And then there's a couple other quick stats that I didn't pull, but I saw. I'm going to shout out Spencer Blake on Twitter. Bookmarked his tweet here, because a couple other stats that I missed. His Corsi 4 percentage for Brancham ranks 2nd on the team in D. And you know what? I don't know what FF percent is, but that also ranks 2nd. And yeah, expected goals for percentage 1st. High danger chances for percentage 5th. Brandstrom has just got some really good advanced stats, and I think he passes the eye test as well this season too. So it'll be interesting to see if the D lineup remains the same the next game in Vancouver, because I really think we need to get Brandstrom back in there. But it's tough to take out Holden after he had 2 assists. A guy that doesn't really put up a lot of points. It would be like taking out Hamonic after that 2-goal game. It would be kind of goofy. There was also shout out to Everyday Sens for this tweet that I had also got here. It was a quote from DJ Smith in 2020 talking about Brandstrom, saying, when Brandstrom is a finished product, you want to see him as an active guy that can break pucks out, that can also defend, and can do some things on the power play. I think he's pretty close to checking off all those boxes. Like, other than power play, which he hasn't gotten really much opportunity at all in the power play, so how can you blame him? And especially with Chychrun being brought in, like, you can't really fit him into the power play anyway. But in terms of breaking pucks out and being able to defend, just huge improvements all around from Brandstrom. So when you look at that old quote from DJ from, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago now, Brandstrom getting close to checking off all those boxes that they want to see from him. So even though he's in and out of the lineup right now, I do hope that the coaching staff is seeing that he's succeeding in these metrics. Like, that's just my one, it's a bit of a rant here tonight, but that's just my one thing that did bother me a little bit. I didn't like that he was not playing tonight, but he worked out okay for the Sens. They end up with the win anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to get into that a little bit because I had all these stats prepared. But unless anyone else has anything else to say in chat, I think that's where I'm going to leave it for tonight. I guess Jared saying he thinks Brandstrom returns versus Vancouver, more of a small skill team, and thinking Holden back in against Calgary and Edmonton, bigger heavyweight play. I think that makes sense, especially Calgary being a huge physical team. That would make sense. And then Edmonton, I don't know. They do have some bigger heavyweight players, but also a bit of a speed and skill game. Brandstrom did score against Edmonton in the previous matchup, so that'll be interesting. I really think it'll be something to keep an eye on to see who is in and out of the lineup depending on how the previous game went and who the opponent is. I think that'll be something to watch. And again, it's a really good problem to have. Just very happy to have Chychrun, and even though I'm complaining about Brandstrom not being in the lineup, I'm glad that we have this problem where it's like we actually have options. So like, even with Brandstrom being out and me being annoyed by that, I'm not too disappointed with Holden tonight. So pretty good stuff overall. Lots to talk about tonight. That was an awesome game, very entertaining, up and down for the Sens, but very happy with the results. I guess actually last thing before I go, I'm going to take a quick look at the wildcard standings. I'm sure everyone else has already been looking at it, but I haven't looked since the end of the game. So we're in 9th. We're in 9th in the conference, which is, again, as I was saying earlier, totally happy with that. If we finish the season in 9th, that's awesome. Huge improvement for the team. And tied with Florida in points with 70, but we've played one less game. We seem to just be keeping these games at hand on all these teams. Washington as well. We have 2 games in hand on them. They're 1 point behind us. Buffalo got absolutely destroyed tonight, which is awesome. Yeah, Jared, just as I said that, Jared saying Buffalo game was good. Dallas totally destroyed them. We're thinking the same things here. Yeah, I took a pregame nap. Like before any of the 7 o'clock games started. I fell asleep around then. Woke up right as that game was ending and see that the score tick from 9-4 to 10-4. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Like, almost thought it was an error. But yeah, Buffalo having a rough stretch actually the last few games. So hopefully they keep falling off, kind of like Detroit did. Although both those teams are still technically in the race. It's funny looking at the standings, and it looks like Buffalo and Detroit are so far down, but they're only 2 points and 3 points behind the Sens with the same number of games played. So that's what we have below the playoff line. And then the Sens, same number of games played as Pittsburgh, 4 points behind. It just reminds me of that home and home set that we had with Pittsburgh earlier in the year, where they took 3 points from it and we took 2. If we could have beat them in regulation in both games, we would be looking good right now. It would be like basically flipping those 2 spots in the standings. That would have been absolutely awesome. But so that kind of similar to the Chicago losses, I feel like that's a moment in the season where I look back and it's a little bit, it might sting a little bit too if we end up missing out on that last spot to Pittsburgh. But man, I'm still so mad about Columbus blowing that lead to Pittsburgh the other day. I saw everyone getting their hopes up and getting excited on Twitter when Columbus was up 3-0, and I'm like, I'm just like, I'm not gonna say anything because I know they're gonna blow it. Like there was no chance Columbus was actually winning that game. Just sad stuff. We need Pittsburgh to fall off here. We need someone to actually step up and beat the Penguins so that we can catch up to them. And then and then it was Islanders versus Penguins today, which totally sucked. And of course it goes to OT. So the Penguins picking up the loser point in that one. Otherwise, actually, I think they were up 3-1. So if they held on to that lead in the third period, the standings could have looked a little bit different here. And looking at it now, I think that probably would have been preferable to the Islanders coming back and picking up 2 points, because then we have all those games in hand on the Islanders, like 3 games back right now and 6 points back. So if you win all those games in hand and then your records are even other than the games in hand, then you tie them, and then it comes down to tiebreaker, which right now they have a decent lead on the tiebreaker. So it's going to be tough to get in, and we've got a tough schedule, but I'm just excited that we're actually in a position where we're competitive and we have a shot, and we're not just totally tuned out on the season at this point, because we know for so long now that it's just been tuning out in fucking November. So I'm happy overall, and I think that's where I'll leave it tonight. Very excited for the next game against Vancouver. Charlie will have that one for you. He's going to be watching a game starting at 3 a.m. his time, so but he's doing one of those late games to give me a break from doing them too, because it's even here it's almost 2 a.m. as I finish this up. So the late games are rough. I'm glad at least that the Sens actually gave us a game worth staying up for tonight, because boy, I'll say it again, that Chicago game sucked so bad, but very happy tonight after the win here. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks everyone for watching tonight and hanging out in chat. Lots of comments. Love to see that. Love interacting with you guys. Leave a like on the stream if you enjoyed. Share it around as well. Subscribe to STPN. And yeah, that'll be it for tonight. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.